Good evening, and welcome to the Portsmouth Board of Adjustment meeting for October 22nd, 2024. I just want to go over one item of kind of housekeeping, that when you are called to present, when you are an applicant, you're given 15 minutes. If you think it's going to be more than that, please let us know ahead of time, and we will vote on that permission. We're pretty easy. And if you are speaking to, for, or against, it's a 5-minute time limit, okay? So, the first item of business tonight is Old Business A, the request of Timothy Huntley, owner, for property located at 124 Raleigh Way, whereas relief is needed after the fact for the keeping of chickens, which requires the following. 1, a variance from section 10.440, use number 17.20, to allow the keeping of farm animals where it is not allowed. Said property is located on Assessor Map 212, Lot 49-1, and lies within the General Residence B District. Is there anyone here to speak to this? Please come up.
Hi there. I'm Timothy Huntley, the property owner of 124 Raleigh Way, also the adjoining property 122 Raleigh Way. It's a shared backyard duplex. Hoping this is well under 15 minutes. It seems like a fairly straightforward request.
I think it probably is. We'll let you
Basically, I'm requesting a chicken coop. It's in the back left corner of my yard. It's in an enclosed run in a fully fenced-in yard. The run itself is just chain link metal. It's 6 feet by 10 feet by 6 feet high, and then within that, the coop itself is 3 feet by 5 feet. I'm not really sure exactly how I should elaborate more on that, but I'm happy to answer any questions if you have them.
If no one has specific chicken questions, we can go to the criteria. Would you speak to those? No? Okay. Do you?
I'll wait.
Okay. All right. Go ahead.
So I'm not sure exactly how I should represent myself regarding criteria. Can you be more specific, please?
The 5 things that you need
Oh,
to do,
okay.
the analysis criteria, which you have included in here.
Yep. I don't have a printed copy of the analysis criteria, just my application. But effectively, that's the coop. I know there was a section regarding like the justness of it, or it'd be more fair or not. I've had these chickens for 4.5 years. I consider them pets, you know. I don't consider them livestock. It's obviously 3 chickens on the property. I'm not exactly getting a lot of eggs or selling anything from it. And obviously I have no intention of making it an agricultural type property. I do understand it's zoned primarily for housing, which is how the property remains. It's myself in one half, and then it's just another apartment for rent in the other half of the property. I'm really not sure what else you want me to say at this time. I'm sorry.
I'm going to walk you through, okay?
I'd appreciate that.
If that's
Thank
okay
you.
with you. Is that okay with us? Okay. 1 and 2 usually go together, of the 5 criteria. The variance will not be contrary to the public interest because?
Okay. Because it's never been a disturbance to neighboring properties or, you know, people on the property itself. I've actually had a number of neighbors who quite enjoy their presence, and I've kind of always made it a communal thing. And again, like, I understand that it's a exception to the existing intent of the property, which is, you know, housing. It'll never override that intent.
The next one is the spirit of the ordinance will be observed.
Okay. I think that's somewhat what I touched on, where I intend for it to primarily be a housing property, and I have no agricultural intents for it. I consider the chickens pets, honestly, more than anything.
You're going to find the third one pretty similar. Substantial justice will be done.
Okay. So I think it'd be more just than not to allow them to remain on the property, allow myself to keep them. I don't have, you know, other properties that I could relocate them to, or other persons at this time to have them. And again, I think it's honestly a benefit to my neighborhood community and my direct neighbors.
The values of surrounding property will not be diminished.
So my property's increased substantially in value, and I've actually made a lot of investments in the backyard in particular. I've spent over $10,000 there this year alone. I had sod brought in. I actually had a section of like chain link fencing meant to be matching fully height fencing surrounding it. And I don't think it'll have an effect on any of the adjoining properties either. I have it located where it is because it's as far as possible from all the surrounding dwellings to be as, little of a disturbance as it can be. And also, I'd say probably 3/4 of the surrounding properties can't even actually see the coop.
The last one, literal enforcement of the provisions of the ordinance would result in an unnecessary hardship.
I think the unnecessary hardship would be having to remove them from the property, having to relocate them to a different home. They are older, they don't lay as much as they used to, which a lot of people aren't really willing to take in chickens and incorporate them into their flocks, especially older ones. And this is something that's honestly never been an actual issue for me in the past. I've been part of my neighborhood, I talk to my neighbors, I listen to their opinions, good, bad, or otherwise, and I've never received any complaints or anything that I can't honestly handle.
Okay. Those are the criteria.
Okay, thank you for walking me through that. I
You're welcome.
appreciate
Are
it.
there questions? Yes, Mr.
Well, okay. Yeah, a couple of questions. One is an easy one. Do you have any other farm animals on your property?
No, I have a 6-month-old puppy who is a little wild, but definitely not a farm animal.
Good to know. The other question I have, it's a couple of other questions, actually. One is, you've had them there for 4.5 years.
Yes.
How did it come to your attention that you needed this variance, and when did it come to your attention?
I had a neighbor complain to the animal control. She felt as though the chickens weren't being fed. She didn't realize that there was a feeder within the chicken coop, that they were being watered. And since then, animal control's come out. They've inspected the property. The health department has done the same on unannounced visits. They haven't been able to give me any kind of recommendations or changes that I should make to their condition or, keeping or anything like that. I had initially, when I got them, looked up city ordinances regarding anything specific to chickens. I got them in 2020 when kind of everyone was getting backyard chickens as a hobbyist thing and couldn't find any. And then the chickens have not actually been on the property itself since that entire time. From about October 2022 till about November 2023, I was on a military deployment, and someone else was looking at that after them.
Very good, thank you. And there's a suggestion in our packet from city planning staff that we should have a caveat that the coop would be moved to comply with setbacks. Is that possible to do?
That's absolutely possible. I saw the comment on it and actually went back and looked at my proposal, and I measured it off of my fence line, which I forgot is actually a little bit within the property borders by about 1.5 feet, but I literally can go back and drag it to whatever location that I need to bring it within city ordinances. If there is a specific measurement for it, I'd really appreciate knowing it, and that way I can just correct it immediately.
I'm sure planning staff could help you with that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Neese, do you have?
Well, my question was sort of along the line of Mr. Rossi's last question. I was a little curious, since the coop is already there, why there wasn't a request for a setback variance. But I think it's somewhat moot since he says it's not difficult to move the coop.
Any other questions? Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
I'm sorry.
It's
Okay. I'm sorry.
So your application says that this is, you want the variance to be able to keep your current flock, are they a flock? I don't know, of chickens. Would you be getting more chickens when these chickens die?
No, I don't intend to. Honestly, they're older. This whole application process has been difficult. I've had issues with, animal control and figuring out exactly what the nuance is, and at this point I'd like to just maintain the flock that I have.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I guess I would just say an additional comment was we would have a stipulation of no roosters. I wanted to confirm that you'd be okay with that.
Yes, I have no intention of having roosters. Luckily, when I got them, they were all chickens, not roosters. Because, I do not wish that upon my neighbors or myself.
Good.
Any other questions? All right,
No.
well, thank you, I appreciate your time.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone in the public who would like to speak in favor of this petition? Come forward.
Good evening. My name is Sherry Mitsui. I live at 111 Raleigh Way, right across the street from Tim. I'm here to speak in favor of Tim's chickens. Having been in his backyard, I can tell you they are well kept, they're quiet, and they are odor-free, which is kind of unusual for chickens sometimes. In fact, I didn't even know he had chickens until a little while ago, and if they made any kind of noise at all, I would have heard them. There is nothing about them that would adversely affect the neighbors, and they also eat bugs. Since we aren't talking about roosters and dozens of chickens, I see no problem with Tim having a handful of chickens in his backyard.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else to speak in favor of the petition? Is there anyone to speak in opposition? Is there anyone to speak to, for, or against? Okay. Then the public hearing is closed.
I would like to make a motion to approve the application as presented and advertised.
I'll second.
Second, thank you.
Okay, going through the criteria, the variance is not contrary to the public interest and the spirit of the ordinance is observed. The purpose of the ordinance is not to commingle agricultural enterprise with residential areas, and this is far from an agricultural enterprise. So I do not think that it violates the spirit of the ordinance to allow these chickens to continue their habitation of this particular property. Substantial justice is done. There is really no public benefit to asking the property owner and the applicant to remove the chickens from the property, so there is no benefit to the public which would outweigh the hardship to the applicant or the cost to the applicant of removing the chickens. The values of surrounding properties are not diminished. The chickens are, I almost feel a little silly going through all these, but anyway, the chickens are quiet. They're not creating a nuisance in the area. The chicken coop is pretty much not really all that visible from surrounding properties, so there is no conceivable impact on the value of surrounding properties, and little enforcement of the ordinance would result in unnecessary hardship, meaning that there's something special about the property that makes the strict application of the zoning ordinance really not to serve the intended purpose of the zoning ordinance. The property is bordered by the same owner on another property. There really is no how to phrase this. There really is no violation of the spirit of the ordinance or change in the character of the neighborhood by allowing the chickens and the chicken coop to continue to exist. I would add the stipulation into this variance and approval that there would not be any roosters kept, that would be limited to 6 chickens, and that the coop would be relocated to be in compliance with the setbacks required by the zoning ordinance.
Thank you. Does the second have anything to add?
Yeah, I just add that it doesn't alter the essential character of the neighborhood, and a big factor for me is that at 6 foot tall, you basically can't see it from, because the fence containing the backyard is also that height. It's really not a big deal.
Is there any discussion before we vote? Okay, a yes vote allows the chickens. Ms. Record?
Yes.
Mr. Neese?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Ms. Margison?
No.
Mr. Rossi?
Yes.
Mr. Mattson?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. You're approved. Also, you can come into the planning department to get information about the setbacks. And,
Also an application check for it,
Okay. And I just want you to know, this variance goes with your property. So should you want more chickens, there are no more hoops to jump through. Okay? Just in case. All right. Okay. New business A, the request of Eric Benvin and James Christopher Dozier, owners, for property located at 49 Cass Street, whereas relief is needed to construct a two-story addition to the rear of the home, which requires the following. 1, variance from the section 10.521 to A, allow a 3-foot side setback where 10 feet is required. B, allow a 13.5-foot rear setback where 20 feet is required. And 2, variance from section 10.321 to allow a non-conforming building or structure to be extended, reconstructed, or enlarged without conforming to the requirements of the ordinance. Said property is located on Assessor Map 156, Lot 10, and lies within the General Residence C District. Is there anyone to speak to this?
Good evening, Madam Chair and the rest of the board. I am Rock Bison of Generation Homes here on behalf of my clients, Eric and James. So, as you said, we are here seeking a variance for an addition onto the rear of their house. I'm going to follow, I don't think I need more than 15 minutes.
Okay.
And 2, I'm going to follow through the narrative that we have written up that I believe all of you have. Not all of it, but bits and pieces. And if there's any moment where anybody has a comment, feel free to stop.
Okay.
All right. So, introduction. So I'm here on behalf of Eric Benvin and James Dozier on property located on 49 Cass Street. The property is 0.09 acres in size. There is a 2-story single-family home on the property that the applicants reside in. It is zoned General Residence C, GRC. The home on the property was built in 1880. According to your city records, the property deed is included in our submittal for the review for full legal description. See Exhibit A. Existing nonconformities. Nonconformity, left yard setback requires 10 feet. Existing condition ranging 3 to 6 feet, and the feature is a single-family residence. Proposed condition, to construct a 10-foot by 14-foot addition on the rear of the home. The applicants would like to extend the property footprint in the rear of the home by adding 10-foot by 14-foot to a 2-story addition. That would accommodate a larger kitchen, add a kitchen pantry, and expand the existing living space currently above to achieve a larger bonus room / office space. The addition would match the existing roof line and design of the existing home. Zoning relief summary. The applicants seek the following variances from the Portsmouth zoning ordinance. Section 10.521 to allow a 13.8 foot plus or minus rear setback where a 20 foot plus or minus exists and is allowed. And to allow for a continued 3 foot plus or minus side setback on the left rear side of the home. The current residence sits 3 foot from the property line as it stands now. Section 10.321 to allow the non-conforming building or structure to be extended, reconstructed, or enlarged without conforming to the requirements of the ordinance. There's an example of existing, existing example there, but I'm going to skip over that. In the present instance, the applicants are seeking a 6.2 foot plus or minus deviation from what is allowed by the ordinance. The applicants would like this expansion of their home in order to gain more space in their kitchen and add more room currently above the kitchen. The applicants plan to reside in the home long-term, and this expansion would make this possible by giving them space they need to accommodate their needs, adding more storage and increasing the functionality of their home. Where the applicants have proposed is consistent with the prevailing character of the neighborhood. The properties that comply with the GRC zone setback limitation in this area of Cass Street are the outliners. The neighborhood itself is characterized by substandard single-family home lots that structures that encroach into one or more setbacks. See Exhibit C if you want to see that. We just give examples of some of the other abutting properties in the area. The addition will have no negative impact upon the light, air, or space of any abutting property, consistent with the objective of the ordinance. For the foregoing reasons, granting the variance will not alter the essential characters of the neighborhood or otherwise have any negative impact upon the public's health, safety, or welfare. The applicants have included letters from the immediate abutters. 3 of them, I think, were included, from their neighbors showing they're in favor of the proposal. See Exhibit D. And then I'm going to jump ahead to the bottom of that. So Section 10.2.24, the values of surrounding properties will not be diminished. As stated above, what is proposed is in keeping the character of the neighborhood and other homes within it. The addition is tasteful and will integrate naturally into the existing design of the home. The improved appearance of the home should only add value to the surrounding properties. Granting the variance will certainly not take value away from them. Current zoning does not reflect the character of the neighborhood, which consists primarily of small lots that exceed the GRC district setback requirements. Municipalities have the obligation to have their zoning ordinances reflect the current character of the neighborhoods. Example, absent this, the board must consider, or hopefully consider, the prevailing character of the neighborhood as part of its hardship analysis. The property has minimal nonconformities as it stands now compared to other properties in the neighborhood. The applicants have investigated another option for expansion the kitchen, but opted, provided the pose of a much substantial financial hardship for them. So we have looked into other alternatives in going, obviously we can't go to the left if you're standing in Cass Street looking at the property. We really can't go to the left. We already are, talking about a 3-foot plus or minus setback there. If we go to the right, it will mean a much bigger financial burden on our owners, just because of all the workings of the inside of that house with the air, condensers, the bulkhead. There's just a lot of stuff going on over there. So taking into consideration the neighborhood and that once the addition is complete, it will, look like it was always there. It's not going to look like an addition. It's going to look like it was always a part of the existing home. The purpose, in conclusion, the applicants have demonstrated why their application meets the criteria for granting the variance requested and respectfully request the board's approval at this time.
Thank you. Are there questions for the applicant? Mr. Mattson?
Yes. So the condenser currently is in the rear of where the addition is going. Will that just be pushed back by 10 feet to be behind the new addition?
That'll get moved most likely to the inside.
Okay.
And we're going to do, probably a crushed stone pad or something like that on the inside.
Okay, like next to the bulkhead?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, you got to remember now we're gaining that expansion, so now we've got more wall room to work with.
Okay.
Yep.
Other questions? Yes, Mr. Rossi.
Our package includes a copy of the warranty deed. You didn't make any reference to it in your presentation, and when I read it, I couldn't see the relevance of it to the application. Is there anything in there that you wanted to point out that I may have missed?
Nothing in the deed. We just figured it would, help it with understanding the property and its location, and so no relevance to the deed, but figured it would be helpful in the process.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to make sure you weren't trying to point something out that I was oblivious to.
No restrictions or anything
Okay.
in that. Nope.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yep.
Questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone in the public who would like to speak? It's okay. In favor of this petition? Is there anyone who would like to speak in opposition? Is there anyone who would like to speak to, for, or against? Okay. Then the public hearing is closed. Yes. Ms. Margerson.
I don't know if there's no discussion, I would like to make a motion to approve the variance request as presented and advertised.
Mr. Mannel's going to second you.
Okay. So, taking the criteria in order, section 10.233.21 and 10.233.22 are the spirit and intent in the ordinance, and we take these things together. And the spirit and intent of the ordinance provisions that they are asking for relief from are the side yard setback and the rear yard setback. As to the side yard setback, that is a continuation of existing nonconformity, and it doesn't impact the lot immediately to the left of it or right of it, whatever way you look at that, 156.9. And for the rear yard setback, it does take the building out of conformity with that, but it does so only by 6.5 feet. The property has special conditions, which I'll get to in a bit, but there is the light airspace aspects are not really going to be implicated negatively by granting this ordinance, this variance. There is no threat to health, safety, and welfare, or no alteration of the essential character of the neighborhood. Moving on to the next criterion is 10.233.23. Granting the variance would do substantial justice. And on this, we say yes, in that there simply is no harm to the public by granting this variance that is not offset by a benefit to the applicant. I'm not sure if
I know, that is-
I always get hung up on that one, but the public is not harmed by the granting of this variance. And granting section 10.233.24, granting the variance would not diminish the values of surrounding properties. That is correct. It is an improvement to the existing property, which will only enhance the values of surrounding properties. And then lastly is a hardship, section 10.233.25. Literal enforcement of the provisions of the ordinance will result in an unhealthy hardship. The property has special conditions that distinguish it from other properties in the area, and owing to these special conditions, a fair and substantial relationship does not exist between the general public purposes of the ordinance provision and the specific application of that provision to this property, and the proposed use is a reasonable one. The property, yes, on this, the property does have special conditions in that there is an existing bulkhead that is built into the land, which makes expansion off the right side where there is more room just impractical. So there really is no fair and substantial relationship between the purposes of the ordinance as compared to this, as applied to this property. The proposed use is a reasonable one. It is an extension of a living area for a house, which is in the general residency district. And with that, I recommend approval.
Yes.
I agree with everything Ms. Margison said. Is it possible to add a restriction to our granting the application that no mechanical units are located behind the new addition, where, as somebody currently pointed out, there's one right there right now, and the applicant has said they're going to move that to the side. I would like to make that part of the granting, that will be no mechanicals, HVAC, whatever, in that 13.5 rear setback that we're granting them, if that's okay.
I'm not opposed to that, but I would assume that if they did, they would have to come back for another variance anyway. So, because mechanical units are still subject to ordinance provisions, but.
Can I just add that they do have room behind there to put them and still meet the provisions of mechanical unit ordinance, so.
Yeah, there's currently an HVAC directly behind the house, and the applicant has said they're going to move that to the side.
Yeah.
That's all well and good.
But if they wanted to put it behind, they still have room to do that as well.
Yeah, well, that's why I'm saying I want to make it granting part of that approval that any mechanicals will not be behind the house.
May I ask why?
Well, we just heard before, and that's why I'm getting back to, is that, I mean, they said they're going to move it. I want to hold them to that.
I do like the idea of holding them to their word, but I don't think that we can make it more strict than the ordinance already is. So even though the structure needs relief for the rear yard, if they changed their plan and did put the condenser back there, I think it would be, as Jillian just said, it's still allowed, so.
I understand that, but I'm not putting on a restriction. I'm holding them to their word,
Okay.
okay? The only way we will ever find out whether or not they did it or not is if somebody complains and Jason Page goes out there. They've already stated they're moving them. I'm just making it part of that approval, that's all.
I wouldn't support that. I just don't think that it's our purview whether or not they do it. And what they said they would do has nothing to do with the variance that was granted. So for me, that seems overstepping. Just saying. I know it's a small thing. Yes.
As the maker of the motion, I would just want to ask a little bit more clarification from Jillian. So the 13.5, you said that's still, I guess I don't understand. How would they be able to not impact the 13.5?
The setback for the mechanical unit is 10 feet.
Okay, okay.
They would still have 3.5 feet.
They would, okay.
Okay,
All
thank
right.
you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
You're going to draft your stipulation then?
yeah, no worries.
Okay, so the motion has been made. Is there any further discussion before we take a vote? No? Okay. Ms. Recker?
Yes.
Mr. Neese?
Yes.
Mr. Mann?
Yes.
Mr. Mantle? Ms. Margison?
Yes.
Mr. Rossi?
Yes.
Mr. Mattson?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. You are granted your addition. You're welcome. Item B on the new business, the request of, I'm going to try this, Aranosian Oil Company, owner, for property located at 1166 Greenland Road, requesting relief for the installation of a canopy sign and light bars which require the following. 1, variance from section 10.1251.20 to allow a 44-square-foot canopy sign where 20 square feet is allowed. And 2, variance from section 10.1252.40 to allow illumination of 2 existing gas pump canopies. Said property is located on Assessor Map 279, Lot 2, and lies within the industrial district. Is there anyone to speak to this petition?
Yes, ma'am. My name is Peter March, New Hampshire Signs, 66 Gold Ledge Avenue, Auburn, New Hampshire. I'm going to be certainly under 15 minutes. So we're applying for a variance from 10.1251.20 for an additional canopy sign, additional size in a canopy sign, and then 10.1252.40 for some additional lighting on the canopy. So we applied for a sign permit for 44 square foot of signage on one aspect of the canopy, and also some light bar, and that was denied, and we're here tonight to appeal to the board to allow us to do that. Essentially, the square footage on the site currently is 95 square feet up at a little table in the verbiage. We're asking to increase that to 119. Typically, if we were maxing out the signage, we would be allowed 240 square feet, so about a little bit over double what we actually have on the site and what we would be requesting. The diesel canopy signage and the car wash signage have been permitted. The subject of this variance is the gas canopy signage and the light bar on the gas and diesel canopies. Essentially, what we're looking for on the gas canopy.
I'm sorry, can you take the mic with you for our records? Or move that, yeah.
It might be
Well, you
simple to
can
move
do-
this thing over.
We can see that better if that will work for you. Yes.
Essentially, on the gas canopy, we're asking for that arrow. That's all we're asking for on the gas canopy. As I said, the diesel canopy signage is already permitted. As far as the downlighting is concerned, what we're asking for is a 6-inch channel with a blue light in it that illuminates down and it illuminates onto the drip edge of the canopy. This is it's not this site, but this is a stylized view of the lit canopy. So that blue band is essentially what we're looking for. That's what the canopy looks like during the day. So there's a day view of some other canopy in some other location, showing the day view and the night view. And essentially what we're doing is we're asking for that little blue band around the perimeter of the canopy. So just to clarify that, we have a Sunoco logo on the gas canopy currently. We're asking to replace it with a Sunoco logo with that stylized triangle, which is a brand component of the Sunoco image. We're also asking for light bar on 3 sides of the canopy, the blue bar I've just pointed out to you. The diesel canopy has 1 Sunoco sign that is currently permitted, and we're requesting 3 sides of light bar on that canopy. So the triangular piece and then the light bar essentially is what it comes down to. The light bar is a metal channel. It's open on the bottom only, and it's designed to project a gentle blue light on the bottom 6 inches of the fascia, so about that much of the fascia, and gently light the drip edge of the pavement below the canopy edge. This downlighting, the light creates minimal impact while it identifies the site, and it lights a portion of the forecourt that is prone to ice. The location is a 24-hour truck stop in the industrial zone. It has a convenience store and a car wash and a commercial and a retail and a diesel canopy. So a retail and a commercial canopy. There are really no adjacent businesses or residents. The closest is 500 feet away. Visibility and lighting, effective lighting and effective signage are key to this type of site. This combats crime, provides a safe haven for ordinary motorists as well as truckers, particularly using the site during the night hours. Although the signage faces Greenland Avenue, the site draws custom from Route 95. There's a lot of transitory traffic that uses that site. There are ramp signs and mainline signs on Route 95 directing people towards the site, so it's a commonly used site. And they need to be able to find it on Greenland Ave. But obviously, particularly, we're talking really about nighttime. So there are the 5 points of the criteria. Granting the variance would not be contrary to public interest. The site's a 24-hour stop servicing traffic on 95 as well as local traffic on Greenland Road, Greenland Avenue. It attracts a lot of evening and nighttime traffic. Truckers park in the lot and use the restaurant and parking area for overnight stays. The public interest is served by A, allowing businesses to adequately identify themselves. This is a new and attractive Sunoco image that does away with the outdated sunrise and NASCAR graphics. You can see the clutter on the old Sunoco image there. The sunrise is that yellow stripy thing, and the red transition is a pretty old dated logo and dated image. The new image is just a plain blue image, as you'll see from the rendering that I have in the packet. Maintaining lighting for security and visibility is stated. A contingent use of the lighting is to light the drip edge of the canopy, which is prone to ice accretion. Maintaining the visibility of the site and sight lines for approaching traffic is also important and serves the public interest. The proposed use will observe the spirit of the ordinance. The ordinance aims to regulate the type, number, location, size, and illumination of signs on private property. This is an industrial fueling site serving commercial and retail traffic, predominantly traffic in transit through the area. It is not near any abutters. The closest residential property is over 500 feet away and are well shielded by trees. In any event, the signage we're requesting cannot be seen by these abutters. The signage we're requesting is less than the 240 square feet, the site would normally be allowed. It's about half of that. So clutter would not be a case in this instance. Substantial justice was done to the property owner. Identifying the site using new upgraded Sunoco image helps the public navigate to the station. The owner wishes to promote safety for the public, for the traveling public as well as truckers. Making sure that the business is well lit, identified, and successful is a key to its success. Transitory traffic, as I said, uses this site to refuel, rest, purchase food and drink, to promote safety and security, and effectively adding lighting to it effectively reduces the risk of bad players using this site. The proposed use will not diminish the value of surrounding properties. The new Sunoco image is being rolled out across the nation. It's attractive, modern, much less cluttered than the old image, and will uplift the area. The site is so separated from other properties in the area that it will have no effect, negative or positive, in terms of property values on surrounding properties. Literal enforcement of the provisions of the ordinance would result in unnecessary hardship. The zoning ordinance doesn't really understand or doesn't take gas canopies into account. Most people going to into gas stations rely on the gas canopy to identify those stations. So it is the fuel brand that tends to attract people to gas stations. So branding these canopies in the manner that most other Sunoco canopies are branded will help attract people to the site. Poor lighting diminishes the appearance and safety of the site. Petroleum is an industry that relies more than most on clear signage to attract people and to make sure that traffic safety is maintained by people looking for the site. Lighting and signage improves the utility of the lot for the owner. Poor lighting and insufficient signage reduces the utility and visibility and causes an unnecessary hardship. And we request the board's favorable consideration.
Thank you. Other questions? Yes, Ms. Marchson.
So a couple of questions. The gas station is open 24 hours a day?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so that means the sign would be illuminated for 24 hours a day per the
It'll be
allowance of
illuminated
the vote
nighttime,
zoning
yes.
ordinance. And you talk about the need for the safety of the site. The site operates now.
Yes.
Have you any problems with it now, with it not being safe?
It is a site that has the potential for attracting bad players on 95, and what we're trying to do is improve the safety of the site. I don't have numbers as to how unsafe or safe it is, but it is literally one of the first site right off the highway for traffic coming southbound on 95, and it's also the last convenient site in New Hampshire for traffic heading towards Maine. Again, it helps any lighting, and this is really the blue lighting is has very minimal impact on the visibility of the site, but it helps light the base of the canopy and helps against ice accretion in the winter.
So just a couple more questions. So, but with having better illumination, you'd be attracting more people to the site from 95. Isn't that correct?
I believe so. That could be a goal. Yeah.
And I mean, are there other ways to deal with that? Lighting on the property, security cameras?
Yeah, I mean, we could certainly add security cameras, but I think what we're trying to present is the concept that if the site is well lit and appears much less sort of, if I say now, it is definitely not lit on a very well lit on a fairly dark part of the road. If we light it better, I think the concept we're trying to put forward is that it will essentially improve safety for the people that are using it.
Okay, thank you.
Are there further questions? Yes.
Yes, I think I have a question for you, but it might be for city staff, is just a clarification is So you're only allowed 20 square feet for the sign, and that's just because you're in sign district 6, and no matter how big the property is, you're only allowed 20 square feet.
Well, the difference is that it's a canopy sign. It's what is defined as a canopy sign. So if it was a building sign, we'd be allowed 100 square feet, but it's not. It's defined as a canopy sign. And under that part of the code, we're allowed 20 square feet. We're asking for the addition of that triangle, which is promotional, but it also helps identify the site. And that, in terms of the increase of signage, the point I would bring forward is that if we were maxing all the signage on that site, including the definitions of canopy signage, we'd be allowed 240 square feet. We really are only asking for 119, marginally less than half of what we would.
Yeah, I see that. I guess for a canopy sign, you're only allowed 20 square feet, no matter how big the property is, and no matter where the canopy is. And
exactly.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Rossi.
Can you confirm that the sign, the lighting is static and will not be,
No.
have any moving elements?
It doesn't. It's a purely static light-emitting diode sign. The lighting on the perimeter lighting, the under canopy lighting, is purely static, and it shines down. It has no dark sky effect at all. It's got dark sky compliant, is what I mean.
And the canopy, same thing, right? It's not going to have a moving
Nothing
element.
moving.
Okay. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay,
Thank you, ma'am.
Is there anyone in the public who would like to speak in favor of this petition? Is there anyone who would like to speak in opposition to the petition? Anyone to speak to, for, or against? Okay. Then the public hearing is closed.
I'll just make a comment that I think this variance request is quite reasonable. I don't think it violates the spirit or the intent of the sign ordinance, and particularly because of the location of it, I think it's fine. It doesn't change the character of the area at all. So that's my opinion.
Is that your motion?
Oh, it depends on whether or not anybody wants to strenuously
want to
object to my opinion.
Would there be a second for that motion? Thank you.
Okay, well, then that is a motion to approve the variance application as presented and advertised. So granting the variance would not be contrary to the public interest and would observe the spirit of the ordinance. And if you look at the purpose and intent of the sign ordinance, basically what we're trying to avoid is distraction to people driving around the roadway, which I do not believe this presents. I do think that there is a benefit to the public in the sense that it's easier to identify this gas station as you come off 95 and drive up, Greenland Road. It's on the left, and sometimes I've driven right past it at times. Sorry about that. On my way to get diesel, and I end up going to the TA truck stop instead, which has a much larger sign and is much more obtrusive. So I do think that there's rather a benefit to the public rather than a hindrance in having this be well marked, particularly at night. And I agree with the argument that, or the statement that having a well-lit fueling area is a comfort to motorists in terms of safety and being able to see what's going on around them. Granting the variance would do substantial justice. I guess that some of the same elements apply to this as well. The public will not suffer a loss by allowing this change of signage. This is in an area where I really don't think it's going to affect the public at all, other than to make it easier to find and utilize the facilities of this fueling station. Granting the variance would not diminish the values of the surrounding properties. This is in a heavily industrialized and commercial area. There's no conceivable impact on the values of surrounding properties. Literal enforcements of the provisions of the ordinance would result in an unnecessary hardship. I think the special conditions that distinguish it are just the fact that by the nature of its location and the proposed signage, compared to other gas and refueling signs, when people are trying to attract business from the interstate, they tend to stick up, way up in the air and are kind of a nuisance. I think this does not present any of those problems, and it fits in very well with where this property is located. I guess the special condition is something I've touched on already, in that it is surrounded by commercial enterprises, and there will really be no purpose of restricting this sign with regard to maintaining the character of the neighborhood. So that is my motion.
Thank you. Do you have anything to add, Mr. Mattson?
Yes, I would just add that the lighting as a secondary factor, potentially improving safety, I do believe that, but at any rate, it wouldn't cause a threat to public health, safety, or welfare. So even if it doesn't increase the safety, it certainly doesn't hurt it. And then I would say that this is a 17-acre property. It's really big, and it doesn't have many surroundings, or any surroundings really, that would be that this lighting would be a nuisance. And the canopy already exists and it's there, so there's not a whole lot actually changing. And just with the directionality of the lighting, it seems to make sense.
Thank you. Yes, Ms. Murchison.
So I will not be supporting the motion. I suspect I'm probably the only one, but I just want to briefly explain why. Although it seems sort of petty and petulant, Article 12 of the zoning ordinance really sets out very detailed requirements for signs and regulating the type, number, location, size, the illumination, and as Mr. Rossi said in his motion, to protect the public from hazardous and distracting displays. I think that this is driven more by a corporate rebranding, which is fine. I have no problems with that. And I don't see that there's really anything that this has any hardship why they really need to exceed the requirements of the sign ordinance. So I will not be supporting it.
Any other discussion? Okay. A yes allows the increased signage. Ms. Record?
Yes.
Mr. Neese?
Yes.
Mr. Mannel?
Yes.
Ms. Margison?
No.
Mr. Rossi?
Yes.
Mr. Mattson?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. So you are approved.
So Rossi, we hope you find the new station to get diesel.
I have a very large tank to fill up, so I hope I can get there too.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, the next item of business, item C, is the request of Andrew Powell and Nicole Ruan for property located at 339 Miller Avenue, requesting relief to demolish the existing sunroom and construct a two-story addition to the rear of the home, which requires the following. 1, variance from section 10.521 to allow a building coverage of 28.5%, where 25% is allowed. Said property is located on Assessor Map 131, Lot 31, and lies within the General Residence A District. Welcome.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. I'm Attorney John Boson. I represent the applicants who live at 339 Miller Avenue. With me tonight is one of the property owners, Nicole Ruan, is here. I'm also accompanied by the project architects, Mark Giannini and Emma Weir, who prepared the plans that have been submitted with this application. Property's in a single-family home. It's a single-family home in the GRA district, and the project involves a small addition as shown on the plans. As you can see from the photographs, the existing condition shows a rather poorly constructed sunroom that lacks functionality for the homeowners. So the proposal is to remove the sunroom, reconstruct it so it can have an eating nook, and you'll see that on the plans. Above the nook will be a small second-story addition that will add living space and simply make the home more comfortable for the applicants. The existing rear entry to the home is located on the south side of the sunroom and has a set of non-code compliant entry stairs that will be removed replaced with a new modern code-compliant set of stairs and a landing area. The addition will increase building coverage from 27.4% to 28.2%, where 25% is permitted under the ordinance. So relief is needed from Article 10.5 to 1. So with that background, I'd like to go through the zoning criteria. First, granting the variance will not be contrary to the spirit and intent of the ordinance, nor contrary to the public interest. And the test here is whether or not granting the variance would substantially alter the characteristics of the neighborhood or threaten the health, safety, and welfare of the public. In this case, there'd be no change to the characteristics of the neighborhood at all if you were to grant this variance. The home will continue to be a single-family home, and it'll continue to blend in nicely with the neighborhood. Public health, safety, and welfare will also not be threatened in any way. The existing home is already non-conforming without incident, and the public won't be threatened by adding 2.5 or 2.4% to the building coverage. Also, this addition is not really visible to the public, so we believe this part of the zoning criteria is met. Next, with respect to the substantial justice test, this is a very modest proposal. In return, the applicants will gain a lot of function to their home. They'll have an eating nook that they don't have now, and they'll have code-compliant stairs while not impacting the public in any way. So again, we believe the substantial justice component of the criteria is also met. Next, granting the variance will not diminish the value of surrounding properties. This project increases the functionality of the applicant's home. It improves it aesthetically, as shown in the plans, and we believe as a result will improve property values. We also have a letter of support from the abutter to the rear, probably the most affected abutter, and they support the project. So we believe this provision of the zoning criteria is also met. Next, we turn to unnecessary hardship. And here I would simply add that the existing building coverage is already non-conforming. The rear entry stairs are not up to code. This proposal will take place in the existing footprint. Very modest addition will result in a big gain for the applicants, as well as a set of code-compliant stairs. Use is therefore reasonable. We think there's no fair and substantial relationship between the purpose of the ordinance as is applied to this property, given the very minor relief being requested, as compared to the benefit that the applicants will receive. So for all those reasons, we do believe the zoning criteria is met, and we would respectfully ask for approval of the variance as advertised.
Thank you. Are there questions for the applicant? Okay.
Thank you.
Good. Anyone in the public who would like to speak in favor of this petition? Anyone who would like to speak in opposition? Anyone who would like to speak to, for, or against? Okay. Public hearing is closed. A motion?
Well, since nobody else jumped on it,
It's your night.
I guess I will do the work. I would make a motion to approve this application as presented and advertised.
I'll second it.
Thank you.
So granting the variance would not be contrary to the public interest, nor would it fail to observe the spirit of the ordinance if we take those together. The spirit of the ordinance, what we're trying to do with regard to building lot coverage is to ensure that that houses and construction does not result in overcrowding and over kind of massing within neighborhoods. This is a very de minimis request in terms of change from, kind of it's one of those decimal point requests that pushes it from 27.4 to 28.2. It's really small. I would just caution that it doesn't mean that future requests of a similar small nature would be easy to get because the closer the more and more you add on there, we don't want to get into a situation where we're salami slicing our way into a very significant variance, but this is not a significant variance. It's not that case. So I do believe that granting the variance observes the spirit of the ordinance. doing substantial justice. There's no loss to the public. The addition will not be visible from the street, and therefore there really is no impact on the public whatsoever. And because of that, there can't be an impact that outweighs the benefit to the applicant. Granting the variance would not diminish the value of the surrounding properties. I do believe that this addition is very much in keeping with what is to be found to the left and right, in the abutting properties. Very much fits into the neighborhood, so I don't see any possible negative impact on the values of surrounding properties. Literal enforcement of the provisions of the ordinance would result in an unnecessary hardship. And here, what we're looking for is special conditions that distinguish it from other properties in the area and make the strict application of the zoning ordinance really not relevant to achieving the purposes of the ordinance. I would say that in this case, there is no impact on the character or alteration of the character in the neighborhood, as Attorney Boson suggested. It continues to be a single residence property, which is absolutely what this area is about, and that is not changing. So there is really no change in the character of the neighborhood. So because of those reasons, I believe that this variance is approvable.
Do you have anything to add, Mr. Matt? No. Is there discussion? Any discussion? Okay, then a yes vote allows the new addition. Ms. Record?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Ms. Margerson?
Yes.
Mr. Rossi?
Yes.
Mr. Mattson?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Neese stayed.
What did he say?
Did he stay at the beginning? Mr. Neese?
No.
We should probably state.
Mr. Neese recused himself from this application, which is why he was not included in the vote. I did not know that was coming. The request of Port Harbor L and LLC owner for property located at 0 Deer Street, requesting relief to construct a parking garage associated with a previously approved mixed-use development, which requires the following. 1. Variance from section 10.1114.20 to A. Allow a 75-degree angle of parking on the lower level where the parking design standards do not allow it. B. Allow a 17.5-foot one-way drive aisle on the lower level where the parking design standards do not allow it. C. Allow a parallel parking space on the upper level with a length of 19 feet where 20 is required. And D. Allow a 10-foot one-way drive aisle on the upper level where 14 feet is required. Said property is located on Assessor Map 118, Lot 28, and lies within the Character District 5, Historic, and Downtown Overlay Districts. Welcome.
Chair Eldridge, good to see you. Members of the board, Attorney John Lyons, I represent Port Harbor LLC, the developer of what we all know as the surface lot across the street from the Sheridan. This project was initially presented by another owner some time ago, which you may be familiar with. We, in essence, my client redesigned the project, and we have all of our approvals from the HDC and the Planning Board, such that the project now consists of 3 buildings containing 80 residential dwelling units, commercial space, parking, associated community space, landscaping, and other improvements. That community space comes into play as to the hardship here. What we've done is instead of putting one massed building on this lot, which is a unique shape, which you'll see in the package, we put 3 separate buildings with community space pass-throughs. So you, in essence, will be able to go from the African Burying Ground under the Labrie Arch through Port Walk Place, in between these community space areas, all the way down to what the north end is. But that's created some design issues as we've placed the building on this unique lot. We have, as a side note, met all subdivision approvals and deadlines that we received from the planning board. That included, we've conveyed 3 parcels to the city so that they can redesign the Russell and Deer Street intersection and eventually create a roundabout at Market and Russell Street. As far as our site plan approval is concerned, we were before the planning board last week and asked for an additional 1-year extension, which was granted because of the design of the buildings, because we have the railroad running behind this parcel and dealing with those issues. We've asked for an additional 1-year extension, which required us, and here's the relevance, which required us to appear in front of TAC. And I note, that was maybe 2 weeks ago, and I note that as part of your package and the comments from the city, they make specific reference to the fact that we did appear in front of the TAC October 8th, 2024 work session, and TAC indicated they had no concerns. They specifically addressed the variance requests that we're making with you. And they make note that they had no issues with those. The only issue they had, and we'll talk about it here a little bit more, is the one space that we're asking for relief from, which is in the, if you look at what's up now, you'll see, if you look to the right-hand side, there's that one space, you have the cursor on it right there, where you come in and out. We're asking for some dimensional relief. There was a concern raised at TAC work session that the way doors open, there may be an issue, and I know that what TAC recommended to you is if you were kind enough to approve our variance requests, that you do so with a condition that internal parking design shall be updated to the satisfaction of DPW, and we certainly have no objection to that. The variances that we're requesting from the parking ordinance include a request that the angle on the first floor, the lower floor, be 75 feet. The parking ordinance provides 45, 60, 90. Obviously, it would be impossible to have a zoning ordinance that had every single potential angle. And as we have developed and looked at these internal parking areas and the way the poles are and the way we've had to shape and create this building, the 75 feet angle works the best. We've provided you with a report from our engineer Walker, who goes through some detail in support of why that makes sense. I would also add that there are some benefits if you were to provide us with this variance. One is we go from 180 to 186 parking spaces. That's not really that's a benefit, but not the real reason we're here. We're requesting these dimensional relief because of the internal components of the building. But I would add that if the variances were granted, we would go from 71 single spaces to 108 single spaces. We would reduce the tandem spaces, meaning you have to move one car out, pull it in. We'd reduce the tandem spaces from 40 to 25, and the puzzle pieces or the stacked pieces would be reduced from 69, if my eyesight is correct here, to 53. So not only are there structural reasons why we're requesting the 4 variances we're requesting, but there's a significant benefit as a result of that. The second variance that we're requesting is that the one-way drive aisle on the lower level, instead of being 18 feet, be 17 feet, 8 inches one way. Again, the engineer has set out in his letter of support in some detail. I have Ryan Plummer with me, one of the principals of the developer who can address some of these issues in detail if you have any questions. We have the 4 parallel spaces on what we refer to as the upper level. I got the upper and lower right, don't I? On the upper level, that one space, we're asking for relief. It's a 20-foot length minimum. We have 19 feet. And the 4th and final variance we're requesting is on that upper level. There is one pinch point where those 2 other parallel spaces are located below that, the one we looked at before. You can see there, and we're asking for relief. There's a column right there that we need some relief of. We believe that we meet all of the criteria, that the granting of the variance won't be contrary to the public interest. Spirit of the ordinance will be observed. We'll do substantial justice. These are internal parking, no public parking in this structure. It will either be valet parking or resident parking. I see my friend Larry Gormley behind me, who represents Market Wharf 1. They have an easement over this surface lot. We had some litigation as a result of that because we moved them across the street to the Sheridan. Court ruled we could move them back. This opens up and improves the parking. They're entitled to 58 spots, which will be provided for when the project is complete. Let me see. Granting the variance will not diminish the values of surrounding properties. We all know what that neighborhood is like in the development down there around Port Walk and the hotels and et cetera. We got the railroad track behind us. The project itself will improve the value of surrounding properties, but certainly this variance as to this internal parking will not diminish the value. I think it adds more potential parking if you were so kind as to grant it. And then finally, hardship. Again, I would point out that the location and shape and the fact that we've created 3 distinct buildings, and the middle building in which the parking is located in, its unique shape to fit in with the streetscape, to provide for these community spaces. We got the railroad behind us, creates a hardship, and has led to our request for these variances.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions? Questions? Yes.
I'm just going to ask. So I just think well, actually, I guess, I don't know, can I ask the question of city staff now, or should we ask the applicant while he's standing at the podium?
Up to you, which will help us gather the information better.
So these are really hyper-technical variance requests. So for purposes of just ourselves, I'm going to ask city staff, why is it that we have these requirements for the angles? I think we can assume what the drive aisle widths are for, parking space length. But I think I'm most interested in the angle of the parking and why we have those, and there are others that are considered okay by, technical organizations.
Yeah, I guess I'll just say that it comes from Article 11, which is site development standards, and that section outlines off-street parking requirements. I assume when they developed this part of the ordinance, they were working off of the parking standards that were, uniform at that time. So, they picked, certain angles that would require certain lengths and distances in order to make it work. But like the attorney said, you can't outline every single angle. So we've got 0, 40, 60, and 90, but, after review, it looks like they've agreed that this would still work, even though it's not something that was noted within our zoning ordinance as permitted.
Do you still have a question for Attorney Lyons?
No, it was just city staff.
Okay.
May I?
I'm sorry, I didn't.
That's okay. That's okay. If I could comment on that, if you look at our engineer's report and the level of service work that he did, he extrapolated our zoning ordinance and applied it to these different angles. So in fact, what we're requesting really fits within what our ordinance provides for.
And that's based on who is going to be accessing these.
Correct.
Not the public, people who are used to this garage. And
Right,
really-
it's LOSC, and he's
LOSC,
identified
okay.
what those.
Okay, thank you. That was just we've never had this variance request
No.
before, so.
Mr. Rossi, do you still have a?
I have a comment relative to Ms. Marchison's question, but I'll save it for our open discussion.
Okay. Any other questions? Any questions? Okay. You may.
Thank you,
have a seat.
thank you.
Is there anyone in the public who would like to speak in favor of this petition? Anyone in the public who would like to speak in opposition? Anyone who would like to speak to, for, or against?
Madam Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, thanking John for the introduction. I'm Larry Gormley, and I represent the Market One Condominium Association, which is located immediately adjacent to the Sheridan Hotel, and it is possessed of 58 parking spaces, a mix of both residential and commercial spaces. That has been deeded to them since 1987. The current owner bought the property, obviously subject to my client's right to park. The exchanges with the owner, while quiet recently, before that were quite pointed and non-productive. As a result of the litigation, the judge that made the dispositive order suggested to Port Harbor Land that it would be helpful if they would simply communicate with my client and advise them what they plan to do and how it would impact my client. We haven't heard a peep. I found out about this because one of my clients got an abutters notice. And I stand before you now, still not entirely clear how or even if it will impact my clients. But I suggest to you I'm not heartened by the history. And as we are creating substandard spaces and what I would respectfully call a jury-rigged analysis with level of service A through D, I remain discomforted. And this characterization is one with which I am unfamiliar other than through this report, and it characterizes the levels of service as A through D. Then it goes to failing. What is proposed as a result of these what is proposed as a result of these changes are level of service C. And the verbiage that I think sums it up best on the second page of the Walker report, it says the combination of these dimensions, 60 feet, Walker grades the 90-degree parking with 8.6 wide spaces and a 60-degree module at a LOSC. This is adequate for the low turnover residential users of these spaces. Well, it's adequate unless it's your space. And if you're making 8-point turns to get out of your space, it ain't so adequate. So again, I am speaking in something of a vacuum because I've never received the information about where it is intended that my clients will be placed in this garage, if my clients will be placed in this garage. But you've got 58 businesses and individuals with rights to utilize this space, and this could very well be impacting them. So my request is simply that before you make any decision, that we be afforded the opportunity to obtain information to allow us to make an informed decision about how and or if this will impact Market Wharf One condominium. And based on what I have, that's all I have at this point, unless you have any questions.
So you have how many deeded spaces?
58.
And they're supposed to go into this garage,
Well, they can be anywhere on the lot.
anywhere on the lot.
Now, that said, that lot will be consumed substantially by these buildings. So I think the options at this point are in one of the parking garages, or they're currently in the underground garage on the Sheridan property.
Okay. I'm just trying to figure out how we,
I'm just going to do this, if I
Sure.
may. Do you have any question for this?
no.
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm not familiar with your condo association. Is it residential condos or are they business condos?
Mixed use, both.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, so your concern is that the quality of the parking spots will be decreased from this change as opposed to you having the spaces at all?
Yes. Our concern is that we are the one patron of this parking from which the owner will derive no benefit. And between that and our history of interaction or lack thereof with the owner, we are substantially concerned that Market Wharf will be accorded the least convenient, the most inopportune parking available. And that is based on our experience.
So my concern is, as the board, this is not within our purview. We can't, we cannot tell the applicant that that these spaces will not be part of your easement. It's very difficult. It's impossible for us as the board to solve this for you.
I'm not asking you to do that. What I am asking you to do is allow us to determine if granted, whether these changes would exact an undue hardship on people that would be parking there. I'm not asking you to direct anyone to do anything. I'm trying to get the information to either mollify my clients, make it clear that there is good faith here, there is no intention of throwing them in a corner, or to suggest to the board that this is not a fair and reasonable basis to grant a variance given its impact on people that have a vested right to be there. These are neighbors. Take it from the typical situation you hear. These are the abutters who will be maybe directly impacted and could be negatively impacted by this change for the duration of their ownership of their homes at that condominium.
I'm trying to think of whether there is anything in your statement that falls within the jurisdiction of this board. Clearly, we are not here to, in any way, be involved in the litigation or history that you have with the applicant. The only thing that I am curious about is it your contention that this particular proposal will diminish the value of the properties owned by your client?
It may well. Again, Mr. Rose, the problem is we don't have the information. We haven't been told where we're going to park. Despite a court's request that we be told, we have not been told. But if they are jammed away, you said you didn't know where it was. It's Deer Street, so it runs parallel to the Sheridan.
I know where it is. I'm just
So,
saying.
assuming that they're going to be put in the most remote parking from that and in the least desirable places, yes, that is going to impact the value of those condominiums when people are seeking to sell them.
Okay.
So what you are asking for is for us to continue this hearing on this application to a future date?
I am.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Pardon me?
I said thank you. There are no
Great,
more
thank you.
Anyone to speak to, for, or against?
Yes. My friend Larry has done what he should do, which is advocate for his client. but he's kind of turned this on its head. I think you need to, in the first instance, know that we had the right, my client had the right to move the easement parking that belonged to Larry's clients. That easement parking was on the surface lot, outside. We then moved them into the underground parking at the Sheridan. They've been kept up to date every step of the way what's happening. What Attorney Gormley, on behalf of his client, then attempted to do was appear in front of every single land use board, planning board, historic district. He appeared in front of them all to stop our project, to force us to permanently provide them parking in the underground garage at the Sheridan. We went to court, granted and agreed with us 100%, indicating that we could move them anywhere we wanted to within this parking garage. We intend, and every time I've appeared in front of a land use board, I've indicated that they're going to get their 58 spaces. They've been provided with all of the development plans, which included the prior parking puzzle, which provided for tandem spaces. This parking provision, if you grant us the variance, improves all of that. Now, I don't know how he can claim that the value of his units would be decreased, because they're going from a surface lot to either where they are now underground at the Sheridan or within this parking garage, which is a covered parking garage within a building. The other thing I would indicate is that there was a question by a board member, I'm sorry, I can't see that far, about whether it was commercial or residential. The units at Market Wharf 1 are limited, the parking is limited to passenger vehicles. Finally, the court finds that the easement terms do not require Port Harbor to accommodate oversized vehicles. As per the terms of the easement, Port Harbor must accommodate Market Wharf's right to 58 parking spaces for, quote, automobiles and other passenger vehicles. That's it. And I do agree that it's beyond, every other board has found this argument beyond their jurisdiction. I believe it's beyond your jurisdiction. We're asking you to rule on the variance as presented. I would also say that I provided to Larry a complete package of everything that I've provided to you. There's nothing mysterious about any of this. He's been kept up along the way. So I would ask you to set this argument aside and please move forward on the petition as we've presented. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I ask a
Mr.
question?
Rossi, yes.
Sorry.
No.
Again, trying to focus my questions and interest in the areas that are within our jurisdiction. In your application and the technical report, I'm sorry, you're having a hard time hearing me?
No, I can hear you. I just can't see that. It looks like Mr. Rossi.
That's okay. I sound better than I look.
Okay.
In your application, in the engineer's report and the study report, the statement was made that this is adequate for level of service C, which presumes people will be parking there. Either they're valet parkers or they are people who are familiar with the lot for repetitive use. Do you think that the 58 spaces that are currently being discussed, is that the same use? Is that level of service C use, or are these people who are customers and not really going to be familiar with the lot?
The answer to that is yes, and our engineer took that into account. In essence, if these 58 spaces are moved from the underground parking across the street, they in essence become residents. They're no different than if you have a condo in one of the new buildings or your condominium is across the street. It's identical.
Thank you.
Yep.
Ms. Janice.
Mr. Rossi asked my question.
Okay, excellent. Okay.
Thank you all.
I have to do this one more time. Is there anyone in the public who would like to speak to, for, or against this petition? Okay, the public hearing is closed. I know you keep me here for my dramatic readings.
There's going to be an HBO series about this hearing at some
We
point.
can only hope. What would we like to do?
I'd like to make a comment picking up on Ms. Eldris's question about parking angles. And I'm not an engineer, but I understand geometry. So there's an interrelationship between the parking angle and the width of the drive-through area, right? So if it's a 90-degree angle, it has to be a wider lane to pass through. So I don't think it's a problem really that this is an intermediate angle, as long as the engineers who understand these things, and I agree with you, it's very technical, it's really beyond our competence. We have to go, by and large, by TAC and the engineering, reports and the DPW, because it's not. I shouldn't say our competence. I don't have the competence to second guess that kind of information, but I do understand that relationship. I just bring it up.
So just to elaborate along that a little bit, is just that, so as you change your angle more, you can get a wider driving lane, but then it's harder to get in and out of the space, potentially, depending on if it's one way and whatnot. But I guess to me, the big thing is that my overall picture of this is we're ending up with more spaces than were there before, and that our technical experts on the tech are in favor of it.
Do you want to add to that in any way?
Well, I guess I was just thinking about it, but Ms. Bartison has
Ms.
a.
Marchison, do you want to?
So I think the technical, the application itself is actually very straightforward. My concern is that we have gotten some testimony that there may be some diminishment of butter values. I don't know how valid that is. I just am concerned that, if we deny this on that basis, this is a hugely complicated project that has been through a lot of approvals, and I think what I would say is I think I would probably be in favor of just continuing this for 1 month. I may not have support for that, and that's fine, because I think you can look at this pretty narrowly, actually, to give the two sides time to talk and figure out the parking spaces. It doesn't look like that probably is going to be feasible. I'm just concerned about not denying this, frankly, to be honest. So, to denying this.
Mr. Mano?
Well, the parking is fairly straightforward. I agree with the city's inclusion that the DPW has to approve. TAC and DPW have no problem with it, according to the minutes by planning staff. But as Ms. Margison said, we have an objection. As far as the 58 market neighborhood units, that in itself will sink the variance. Granting the variance would do substantial justice. Well, if these people who have a legal right to it, they have that objection. I see that, even given the history, that granting the variance as is could put people in a worse legal position by granting all of these. Whereas if the two sides who will be using this parking can come together and they agree with it, then we have no problem granting the variance. So I will support Ms. Marginson's request for a continuance until next month.
It's not a request, I'm just putting it out for discussion, so.
I would support that.
Any other comments? I couldn't agree less. I don't understand it. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I guess.
I'm allowed to talk.
Yeah, so I guess I would say I appreciate where you guys are coming from. I guess for me, the compelling statement that the reason why I would be less inclined to continue it is if we just look, obviously an attorney has to represent their client in their best interests, but the reality is these clients are going from surface parking to covered parking. So I don't think that you could say it diminishes them or harms them. I know that's what's being said because of the uncertainty, but the expert testimony isn't necessarily conclusive as a matter of fact. So,
Understood.
And I would also question where the bad parking spaces are in this brand-new
or what would change
garage.
between now and next month.
Right. Or what would change between now and next month. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the application as presented with the stipulation that the internal parking design will be updated to the satisfaction of the experts at Department of Public Works.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Taking the first two criteria together, the variance is not contrary to the public interest and the spirit of the ordinance is observed. The purpose of the ordinance here is to have properly created parking spaces and travel lanes, and our technical advisory committee has indicated that would be achieved here. And this change to the internal parking of this approved project won't alter the essential character of the neighborhood. And it's no harm to the public health, safety, or welfare. And then the next criteria is that substantial justice is done. And here, the benefit to the applicant should not be outweighed by harm to the general public or to other individuals. And even though I acknowledge that there's some concern about this change proposal, to me it seems like a win-win, where it's a benefit to everyone involved by going from surface parking to covered parking. And the next one is that the values of surrounding properties are not diminished. There's no reason to think that going from a surface parking lot to building a structure that fits to this unusually shaped and located lot, there's no reason to believe that would diminish property values, as it should actually increase property values. And then this is the matter of changing the parking itself within the structure. There's no reason to believe that it would diminish property values. And then the final one is that the last criteria, literal enforcement of the ordinance would result in unnecessary hardship. The special conditions of this property are that it's irregularly shaped, it's abutting to the railroad tracks, and the proposed building that's been approved has been shaped somewhat uniquely to accommodate the shape of the parcel itself, which results in these unusual parking spots that our technical advisory committee has deemed adequate. And then, so there's no fair and substantial relationship between the general purpose of the ordinance and the provision of the specific application here with this customized parking, we'll say. And then finally, this proposed use is a reasonable one. It's, no matter what it's going to be parking, it's just a matter of, in this situation, we actually end up with slightly more parking lots, which should benefit everybody, parking spots, which should benefit everybody. So, yeah.
Okay. Does the second have anything to add?
Yeah, I think I do. I agree with everything that Mr. Mattson said. I'd like to address a little bit, though, the dispute that was brought up. The request that the applicant has brought to us is entirely related to technical details about the layout of the spaces. The dispute seems to focus on certainly where deeded spaces will be provided, and perhaps it goes so far as to if deeded spaces will be provided. The request for relief that we've been asked to grant doesn't really have much to do with that dispute. I could clearly see that there may be undesirable spaces in the lot, but that is not what we're being asked to rule on. We're being asked to rule on the geometric orientation, really, of the spaces in the lot. And I don't think that, so I think that is really outside the purview of the ZBA to be weighing in on whether or not where the spaces are going to be located, which apparently is still up in the air. I can understand the desire to have a continuation or a delay. It's not clear to me that that will be effective, depending on which speaker you believe. There either has been lots of information exchanged or not much information exchanged, and I'm not sure they'll come to agreement in another month. And that still doesn't change the fact that it's really not up to us who parks where. It's the layout of the parking garage that is being brought for our consideration.
Yes.
I will not be supporting the motion. And I agree it's a technical layout, and TAC and DPW have conditionally given their blessing. But the speaker who's speaking for the 58 condo owners is making a good point. And it's clearly a reasonable request to continue the process on a project that's already been granted 2 one-year extensions. It's not like another month is going to change this. Maybe they can come to an agreement. Maybe, as Mr. Neese says, they can't. But it's not an unreasonable request to continue this for 1 month. I have been down this road with the 58 condo owners before, and their parking rights have been shuffled around by each owner of the Sheraton. So for them to be aggrieved by this process is reasonable. For them to ask us to continue this to find out exactly where their parking is going to be, which, considering there's an underground lot underneath the Sheraton and this, I don't think that's unreasonable, considering they're moving their parking around. So, as it stands, I will not be supporting the motion to grant.
Ms. Margerson.
So I just want to clarify that it's not about coming to an agreement. It's not about it's not about the litigation that has gone on for years on this. It does directly imply 2 prongs of the criterion which we are supposed to base our approval on. So, but I think, and not to leave Mr. Mann high and dry, but I will be supporting it because I do think that the motion was well stated and the second had good things to add. I suspect that perhaps this will continue with litigation, but I do think that the applicant has made a good argument about the value of the surrounding properties, how the easement holders will not be, perhaps their values will not go down. That said, I understand the spirit, the intent of the board is not to continue this, but I think to move this along, I will support the motion.
Any further discussion? Sorry.
I just have to say that this is not the place to come to resolve litigation disputes that are not directly related to the specific variances that are being requested.
Okay, so a yes vote allows the design for the parking lot that has been recommended. Ms. Rickard?
Yes.
Mr. Neese?
Yes.
Mr. Mannel?
No.
Ms. Margerson?
Yes.
Mr. Rossi?
Yes.
Mr. Mattson?
Yes.
Got it, good. And the chair says yes, so you are approved.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay.
Motion to adjourn?
I just want to say one thing, that we had that meeting about the concerns we had, the questions we had, and we haven't received follow-up. And I don't know if Trevor is intending to get back to us with notes, or do we want to think about another time? I guess I want to know what's going on there, if you know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, but
Okay.
we could schedule another work session to follow up, or if you want, for now, we could follow up with notes and then schedule, or
My first request would be to get notes from it and allow us to look it over so we know kind of what we're going into, but I'm not the only person at this table.
And also suggested language changes to the rules. So just a marked up version
I mean,
of
this-
this is suggested changes to the rules.
0.8% difference in property coverage could have been an administrative decision. I'm sorry, we're closed.
Can I make a motion to adjourn now?
Okay, is there a second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay.